known as sex.
Because the survival of many species depends on sexual reproduction, nature made sexual stimulation intensely pleasurable, and then added orgasm as the ultimate reinforcer for all the time and effort it takes to get a sperm and egg together. Nature also arranged things so that any event regularly associated with sexual arousal could become a sexual motivator, and that any event that was paired with sexual gratification could become a learned reinforcer, as advertisers well know. Some other animals, like these jellyfish, don't need sex to motivate them. They reproduce by a variety of non-sexual means. That's because they live in highly stable environments and need only the same genes as their parents to adapt to the same conditions. But in a changing, variable environment, there's an advantage to having offspring who are the product of a mixed set of genes from two parents. Genetic variability ensures that the offspring will not be carbon copies of their parents, and that some will survive by adapting to changing conditions. The next biological problem to be solved is how to synchronize the activity of males and females so that their sperm and egg cells meet under the right conditions. First, a sexually mature partner must be selected from the same species, preferably one who will supply the best genes to the new generation. This is where the males strut their stuff for the females, who then pick their ideal partner. Male peacocks fan their feathers. Rams fight off potential competitors, all with varying degrees of success. Next, the male and female have to pick the right time and place. Most animals only produce offspring in the spring and summer, when the environment can provide enough food and warmth for the young. The mating place must also be safe from predators and natural disasters. So to get to the right place may involve traveling thousands of miles in vast migrations to mate and breed where they were born. Next come the behavior patterns that are necessary for fertilization. Courtship rituals, for example, increase the female's readiness to accept the male and also serve to excite the male to focus all his attention on the matter at hand. Then built-in reflexes aid in orienting and positioning both partners during copulation. And so behavior and biology work together to produce the next generation. Psychologist Norman Adler of the University of Pennsylvania studies the mechanisms of sexual behavior.
We're interested in the two realms of physiology and behavior. We study reproductive behavior and its physiological consequences. The triggering of reproduction by behavior is a fundamental way of synchronizing the animals. It makes sense that the female would become reproductive or pregnant only when there are stimuli from the male are around. Otherwise, it's wasting her energy and her resources. Pregnancy in female rats is different from the pregnancy in humans, and the male's behavior fits into that different pattern. In humans, the menstrual cycle is 28 days and has a little progesterone phase after ovulation. In rats, the cycle is much shorter. It's only a 4-day cycle. And the way it works is that there's no progesterone secretion after ovulation. So something has to trigger the progesterone, which is the hormone of pregnancy, if the female rat is going to get pregnant. The thing that we've discovered that triggers that progesterone secretion is the male's stimulation during copulation. In the rats, the mating behavior consists of the male and the female signaling each other. The female has a solicitation pattern that attracts the male. He emits a series of vocalizations and follows the female. And then he will, if everything goes right up to that point, he'll mount her and then jump off. He'll do this 10 or 15 times within a few minutes. On some of these mounts, he will insert the penis into the female and stimulate the nerves in the cervix. And that seems to be the beginning of all these wonderful events that are occurring inside the female. The hormonal secretions, the uterine contractions, and they are also stimulating the male to allow him to release the sperm at ejaculation. After about, let's say, 10 of these intermissions, on the last intermission, he will ejaculate the sperm, and then he deposits a coagulant called the vaginal plug, which acts like a stopper to some extent and plugs the cervix for at least a few minutes. That allows the sperm to get through, and that's the end of the sequence, at least for a time. He then has the good taste to stop for about 10 minutes, and we think that his stopping the behavior is an active inhibition, because during that 10 minutes it's a critical time for the female. The sperm have to move from the vagina into the uterus, and so the sex behavior is cut off during that time to allow the sperm to get in there. The change in the female's hormonal status is a function of psychological state, a function of the behavior that she's gone through. Most people think that the brain secretes behavior, that physiology somehow acts on the animal's nervous system and outpops behavior, when in fact it's a double relationship. It works both ways. It's like any relationship. It has to go in two directions. So not only does physiology control and produce behavior, but behavior and the stimuli produced from behavior also affect physiology.
In humans, unlike rats, sexuality is also a way of using the body to satisfy personal desire. Sexual motivation becomes a readiness to experience intense pleasure. Often, sexual motivation finds expression in romantic love, strong emotions and intense attractions towards another person. Romantic love embodies a potent mix of positive and negative emotions and blends them with strong motives. Our need to be understood, accepted, cared for, and sexually satisfied can create tension as well as harmony. We may become jealous, frustrated, or angry due to the pain and uncertainty caused by such an intense relationship. Despite its revered position in our culture and close association with marriage, romantic love tends to be fragile, short-lived, and not always sensible, as when we fall in love with someone we know is not good for us. With romantic love, we invariably see situations of strong motivation mixed with intense emotion. In fact, romantic love highlights the extent to which motivation and emotion are intertwined. The more emotional we feel, the greater we assume our motivation is. While the motivated person usually moves physically toward or away from something, the emotional person is moved internally by psychologically significant situations. The result is a complex pattern of changes involving feelings, thoughts, behavior, and physiological arousal, a pattern we know as emotion. For Charles Darwin, emotions were innate, not learned. They were evolutionary remnants of previous adaptive behaviors, such as fighting. He argued that some of our facial expressions are similar to those of animals in comparable situations. At birth, and soon after, all infants show similar expressions of emotion. It isn't until later that we learn from our environment when to express and when to inhibit our emotions, depending on a number of social factors. Psychologist Robert Plutchik has proposed that we are born with 8 basic emotions, depicted here in the inner circle. These 8 are made up of 4 pairs of opposites, such as joy and sadness, or anger and fear,